Assalamu alaikum. I'm Dr. Faria Bukhari, right now at the Phoenix City Hall doing a live protest against the lies of India that India has been lobbying in the US Congress all this time, all these years, since 2008, on a guy by the name of Hafiz Saeed, who is no less than the Batman of Kashmiris. He has played a significant role in the self-defense of the Kashmiri civilians against the war crimes of the Indian Army. We all know I have done so many protests about the well-accounted, heinous atrocities that the Indian Army has orchestrated against the Kashmiri civilians. And you all know what happened on the 5th of August when India forcefully, unconstitutionally annexed all of Kashmir with itself against the UN Charter, against the international law. And even though India has been condemned by so many human rights organizations, including Amnesty International, including Human Rights Watch, including United Nations, and asked to reverse its decision, it has refused to do so, as a result of which Kashmiris are under a state of brutal siege that is imposed upon them by nobody else other than the Indian government, where the Indian soldiers are taking Kashmiri girls as sex slaves and brides, where they are forcefully occupying their land, where they are forcefully doing heinous atrocities and war crimes against the Kashmiris. And everybody knows about it. Pakistan has been campaigning for the right of self-determination of Kashmiris for a long time. And this guy, Hafiz Saeed, he has played a pivotal role in trying to protect the civil rights and the civil liberties of the Kashmiri people by ensuring that they're protected, that they're saved, that they're rescued from the war crimes of the Indian Army. It is very unfortunate that we live in a world where it is very easy to sell a lie to the American people by buying the US congressmen, by buying the US congresswomen, by buying the US senators, and by negatively promoting an agenda that is based upon deceit, that is based upon lies, in order to achieve interests that actually go against the national interests of the United States. What happened in the case of Hafiz Saeed was a situation very similar to what I'm talking about. So this guy never ever accepted that he committed the Mumbai terror attack. You know, we have been through the war against terrorism, and we have fought. All of us have fought, we have sacrificed, and we have suffered. And in this war, the one thing that I must tell you is, and by now we have come to realize, is that not every person who is labeled as a terrorist turned out to be a terrorist. The same thing happened with the victims of the Guantanamo Bay, where thousands of people got arrested under the false allegations of having committed terrorism. And it was only a decade later that it was realized that they did not do anything, that they were innocent, and they were profiled wrongfully. And so the same thing that in the drone strikes of US that happened on the Afghanistan border and the Pakistan border, so many children, hundreds of children got killed as collateral damage. Hospitals got bombed under false intel. An entire country of Iraq got invaded, and 1 million Iraqis were decimated under false intel. So this is unfortunately the world we live in, a world of disinformation, a world of negative, corrupt lobbying. And this is exactly what happened in the case of Hafiz Saeed. He is a victim of the misinformation, disinformation, false allegations of the Indian lobby that is corrupt and that has played a key role in forcing the US Congress to profile this man as a terrorist, just like all the victims of the Guantanamo Bay were once profiled as terrorists too. And it was only a decade later we realized that they were not, that they had not committed terrorism, that they had been arrested under false intel. US invaded Iraq under false intel. 1 million Iraqis were decimated under false intel. So today, Hafiz Saeed is going to lose his life in the anti-terrorism court of Pakistan, where he's going to be indicted in the next few hours because of the unfair pressure of US Congress and US presidency on the Pakistan government to indict an innocent man. And in Pakistan's anti-terrorism court, a terrorist is always hanged to death. So this guy, who has done nothing except for trying to save the lives of the Kashmiri civilians against the war crimes of the Indian army, is going to lose his life because of false allegations, because of fake intel. And by the time the world finds out who he really was, it will be too late. He will be dead by that time. We all watch Batman movies. We love Batman. We love what he does. He tries to save the civilians. He tries to save the people who are unguarded, for whom there is no hope. He fights against the bad guys. This guy, Hafiz Saeed, is categorically the Batman of the Kashmiri people. If he was a radical, terrorist, extremist person belonging to a radical, extremist, terrorist organization, he would have accepted and claimed proudly that yes, he committed terrorism. From Al-Qaeda to ISIS, every terrorist group headed by every terrorist leader has accepted proudly whatever he has done. This is how these cult organizations work. But this guy, Hafiz Saeed, has never accepted that he orchestrated the Mumbai terror attack in 2008. It was the corrupt lobbying of the Indian government in the US Congress that literally took advantage of the sale tag on the US congressmen and the congresswomen selling their, literally buying this allegation on Hafiz Saeed that he's a terrorist when he never committed the Mumbai terror attack, and he's never accepted that he did it. Because this is what I'm trying to tell you. It's a very simple point, and all of you who work in the counter-terrorism department will agree with me, who have done years of research on terrorism, that any terrorist who commits terrorism will make sure that he claims that attack. But this guy never ever accepted that he has committed the Mumbai terror attack in 2008. He never ever accepted that he's the leader of Lashkar-e-Taiba, which is the organization that has been incriminated as the mastermind in this terror attack. There is an independent think tank by the name of Elias Davidson, who has categorically written an entire book by the name of Betrayal of India. And in that book, he has mentioned with proof, with evidence, he has done a forensic audit of the false and fake allegations of the Indian government against Hafiz Saeed, and he has proved them wrong. But the problem is this: when it comes to the US Congress, they don't listen to the truth. They listen to what they want to listen to. They listen to what they like to listen to. So this is why when it is profitable for the energy companies of Dick Cheney to invade Iraq on false and fake intel, they will do it with total disregard for the democratic Constitution of the United States. When it comes to droning children, killing them at the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan with the bomb strikes as collateral damage, they will do that without even thinking twice, just because it suits their military industrial complex. Because they have to sell more drones, they have to sell more weapons, even if it means that hundreds of children lose their lives under the false intel that leads to these drone strikes. So this is the point I'm trying to make. We are at the epic of the nuclear flashpoint of Kashmir. Kashmir is a 72-year-old conflict between India and Pakistan. Kashmiris are not guarded right now by anyone against the Indian Army's war crimes. These war crimes, again I repeat, have been documented by MSF, by Human Rights Watch, even by the US Human Rights Commission. They have been documented. However, no one is trying something practical to stop these war crimes against the Kashmiris. So what do? You send Peace Corps. How do you send those Peace Corps? When you have your civilians stranded in a brutal siege under a very brutal curfew, where they are being bombarded with atrocities, with rapes, with kidnappings, with torture, with extrajudicial killings. They have graveyards of unlabeled graves in Kashmir that have been dug by the Indian Army. Amnesty International has been talking about this for a long time. And since the 5th of August, they have shut down all kinds of communication. They have closed up Kashmir because they are actively committing a genocide against the Kashmiris. So what do? If you orchestrate a combat battle against them, that is, if Pakistan army goes there, you're talking about a nuclear apocalyptic war within the next week or so. So what do? How do you ensure that these civilians are protected from Indian Army's aggression, that the damage done by the war crimes of Indian Army is minimized? So this is where people like Hafiz Saeed come in. He is not a terrorist. He worked as a paramilitary officer in alliance with Pakistan's intelligence organization, and he did a tremendous job to try to save the Kashmiris from the aggression of the Indian Army. And India is bent upon trying to get this guy killed, even if they have to get him falsely incriminated in a terror attack that he never committed. Why? Because they know that till this guy is killed, if this guy is not killed, they will never be able to do whatever they want in the Valley of Kashmir against the Kashmiris. They will never be able to enforce submission of Kashmiris into their genocide into their brutal atrocities unless this biggest obstacle is killed. And so how do they get him killed? They get him killed through FATF. They put extraordinary pressure with negative, corrupt lobbying and FATF, putting pressure upon the Pakistan government to arrest this guy under false allegations of orchestrating terrorism in India in the Mumbai attack, which I've already told you is a false flag attack, documented, investigated by Elias Davidson. So this guy, Davidson, wrote an entire book, The Betrayal of India, in which he exposed the lies, the deceit of the Indian government in the Mumbai terrorist attack. And nobody is bothering to read this book that is based upon forensic audit, that is pure investigative journalism that proves that the perpetrators of the Mumbai attack were from India and not from anywhere else, with Indian domiciles. So the US is again being fooled. The American people are again being fooled into believing that this guy is a terrorist when all he has ever done is tried to save the lives of the children of Kashmir from the barbaric brutalities of Indian Army. He is not a terrorist, he's a hero. He is a soldier. He has worked with the Pakistan Army. He has worked with the Pakistan intelligence. He is part of their paramilitary force. When US has its people stranded in a conflict zone, US will send its paramilitary forces to try to protect them against aggression, to try to rescue them against aggression in the name of self-defense. So when the Pakistan's army did that through this man, Hafiz Saeed, sending him, trying to save the lives of the Kashmiri people who call themselves Pakistanis, and Pakistan believes they are Pakistanis, this is also an act of self-defense. This is not terrorism. Would you call, remember that movie Argo? When the Iranian Revolution happened and you had your entire diplomatic team stranded in Tehran in the middle of all the crisis, and there was a risk to their lives, you sent special forces to try to save them and rescue them, because that is called self-defense. So what do you think is Hafiz Saeed doing? He's trying to save the lives of the Kashmiri children against the aggression of the Indian army. What he's trying to do is what you tried to do in Iran so many years ago. So when it is okay for you to do that, self-defense is okay for you to do, why isn't it okay for Hafiz Saeed and for the Kashmiris? Kashmiris are suffering from the genocide by India. India is committing active genocide of Kashmiris in the Indian occupied Kashmir right now. And Hafiz Saeed is their first and last line of defense. If you do not want a nuclear war to happen. So it is very much in the national interest of United States to support the paramilitary procedures of the Pakistan Army via people like Hafiz Saeed to protect the civil liberties, to protect the rights, to protect the lives of the Kashmiri children from the pallet injuries of the Indian Army, to protect the Kashmiris from getting abducted wrongfully by the Indian Army from getting molested, to protect the Kashmiri women from getting raped by the Indian Army soldiers. It is very much in the national interest of the United States. If you don't want a nuclear war, which will happen if you didn't save this paramilitary officer whose only job has been to try to save the lives of poor civilians stranded in a state of curfew, stranded in a state of brutal siege by the Indian Army soldiers. If we stop this thing, we are looking at head-on collision between Pakistan and India. Both the armies fighting, grabbing each other by the neck, and both of them are nuclear armed countries. We are looking at a nuclear war. So it is very much in the national interest of US that if you can send your paramilitary forces to save civilians, your civilians stranded in conflict zones, then you should also support people like Hafiz Saeed, whose only crime has been to try to stop the genocide committed by the Indian Army in Kashmir, by trying to stop the Indian Army from committing heinous war crimes, by trying to decrease aggression, by trying to decelerate, discourage aggression. And this is something you have to realize, that if he gets killed and gets the death sentence tomorrow in the anti-terrorism court of Pakistan, because Pakistan is under a lot of pressure of FATF, which is all lobbied by the Indian government, then we are going to lose that line of defense of the Kashmiris. The last and the first line of defense of the Kashmiri people is going to be gone, because everybody then would be discouraged to try to save them, which means that the Kashmiris are going to get more and more oppressed. They're going to get more and more persecuted. They're going to get more and more brutalized by the Indian Army. And when that happens, it's a volcano ready to erupt at any time, because eventually Pakistan Army will have to intervene, which means we're looking at a nuclear war that's going to end all of the world. It's going to be apocalyptic. So it is very important to save this paramilitary army force, to protect its responsibility. And instead of slandering him for something he never did, and instead of buying all the lies and the deceit that the Indian government is feeding you, it is about time you used your mind before 1 million Kashmiris lose their lives at the hands of Indian Army. We are in a global world. This is the era of globalization. Whatever happens at one corner of the world affects the other corner of the world. This is how the world acts today. You cannot say that you're sitting in US and it doesn't matter what happens to Kashmiris, it's not going to affect you. Believe me, if a nuclear war happens, it is going to very much affect you. Believe me, when Iraq got invaded and 1 million Iraqis got decimated under the false intel that was given to you, it was by the time you realized it was too late. But here I am telling you that this guy is innocent. This guy is not a terrorist, just like Iraq did not commit terrorism. Do something about it before it is too late. This is your window of opportunity to try to stop an innocent guy, an innocent hero, from getting wrongfully indicted for a crime he never did. Look at what happened in the Guantanamo Bay. Look at what happened in the secret prisons all over the world, the war atrocities, the collateral damage. Look at what happened under fake intel, disinformation, false war intel. Look what happened in your name, in the name of your liberty, in the name of your democracy. Look what happened. An entire civilization was decimated. Children, little children got droned. They were not terrorists, but you were told they're terrorists. And so they got droned, and by the time you realized it, it was too late. Because someone had to sell these drones, and the military-industrial complex, Raytheon, Boeing, they had to make money out of bombing these children. If it were not for people like Jeremy Skyle, who wrote the book, who made the movie of the dirty wars, nobody would have found out that what was going on in these drone strikes. Now we have a book of an investigative journalist called The Betrayal of India by Elias Davidson that exposes the lies, the deceit of the Indian government in the Mumbai terror attack 2008 that proves that Hafiz Saeed did not commit this terrorist attack. And people like Dick Cheney, who are always excited and happy to sell their soul, sold their soul to the Indian lobbies and wrongfully incriminated him as a terrorist so that they could just get some extra bucks. This is how the US Congress works now. This is not democracy. This is corporatocracy. This is corporation. You can buy your congressmen. You can buy your senators. You can buy your congresswomen. There is no law. There is no constitution. It is the law of the jungle. If someone has money, he can give money to your senators, to your congressmen, to your congresswomen, and give them fake information, false information, and get countries invaded. And it will be only after the damage has been done and 1 million people have perished will you realize the corruption that happened right under your nose in the name of democracy. US government sold itself to the Indian government, putting fake allegations on Hafiz Saeed. You don't believe me? If you have links, go try to read the CIA files. You will find everything. CIA documents everything. I am sure CIA would have a file that will expose that Hafiz Saeed did not commit the Mumbai terrorist attack. I want good journalists who have the will to expose the lies of the corrupt governments of the world to come forward and investigate this matter and disprove the fake allegations of the Indian government that is feeding, that is sponsoring the lies churned out by the US Congress to the American people. Just like the intel given during the Iraq war was wrong, just like the intel given during the time of the droning of the kids was wrong, this intel given to the US government and the US government giving this intel to the rest of America is very much based upon lies and deceit. And I encourage that you read the book of Betrayal of India by Elias Davidson to dig for the truth yourself. Because tomorrow, in a few hours, this innocent man whose only crime was to try to do self-defense of the poor, unarmed Kashmiris against the Indian Army's aggression is gonna be killed in the Anti-Terrorism Court of Pakistan under the fake allegations of being a terrorist. And the same thing happened when the whole Guantanamo Bay crisis started. Thousands of people who did not commit terrorism got picked up, got jailed in an unconstitutional, horrendous jail called Guantanamo Bay, where waterboarding was done, where a lot of human rights violations were done. And by the time the Americans found out that these people had not committed any act of terrorism, it was too late. Some of those people got very, very sick. It was a lifelong mental trauma. It was a lifelong social displacement. When they were released, they were never accepted by the society like they were before. Their whole lives have been scarred. Think about those children who got droned on the Afghanistan and Pakistan border by the drones of the US Army under fake intel, under the fake assumption that they're terrorists. I'm talking about infants. I'm talking about little children. Come on, you guys love children. I know. This is how your army treated children of foreign lands in the name of your democracy, in the name of your freedom, your liberty, when you love your children and you also love the children of the world, when you have so many non-profits working so much to alleviate poverty, to spread education in countries where you have never been to. This is what I'm trying to tell you. Very bad things are happening under your nose, in your name, with your tax money, violating the clauses of your constitution. And this is one of those things. Hafiz Saeed did not commit any terrorism, just like the Iraqi people did not commit any terrorism, just like those children who got droned by the US Army drones did not commit any terrorism. And it is about time that the American people realized that they have been fooled for the last decade with the fake intel of people like Dick Cheney, who have sold their soul to the devil, who will sell their soul to any government for a few bucks, who have waged horrendous wars in your name to occupy foreign oil wells, to sell more weapons. Is this what you stand for? Is this what your democracy stands for? Is this who you are? Is this how you would like to be defined in the rest of the world? That you believe in the lies churned out by your government that has sold itself to the highest bidder. It's like an auction out there. I request all the American people, if you believe in the constitution of your country, if you believe you're a democratic country, if you believe you're a free country, if you believe you're a better country, you need to prove it. You need to tell your government to stop telling you lies. You need to dig for the truth. You need to read the book of The Betrayal of India by Elias Davidson. That's based upon investigative journalism. It has done a forensic audit of the Bombay terror attack and proven the false allegations of the Indian Army wrong. They have proven the Indian government wrong. It is fake intel. It is disinformation. It has been fed to you through your corrupt government because they want to make money out of it. Because they want to sell the Indian government more weapons. They want to make profit from selling weapons to the Indian government. So they would say anything that India says. So I'm going to end this speech right now, but this is my few cents to tell you to try to do something about the indictment of Hafiz Saeed. And there's nothing wrong in the self-defense of the Kashmiris against the Indian aggression of the Indian Army soldiers. If it was your child who was going to lose his eyesight from the pellet injury of an Indian Army soldier, if it was your sister who was going to be raped by an Indian Army soldier, if it was your 10-year-old kid who was going to be kidnapped and molested and sodomized by the Indian Army soldier, what would you do? Won't you want this Batman of Kashmir to go in there and try to do whatever he can to save the lives of the poor, unarmed Kashmiri people? Wouldn't you want to do that? So if you want to do that to save the life of your families, why is it unconstitutional? Why is it terroristic? If Kashmiris want to save their lives, if Kashmiri want to save the lives of their children, their families, why is their defense, why is their self-defense labeled as terrorism? Think about it.